Tonight we put together two seemingly unrelated Bible stories, and the outcome will be that we should understand Christ a little better. We should understand who we might be or what kind of person we might be, and we might even have some good clues on the ingredients for great faith. There it is. Okay, and if you stick around long enough, you might actually find out what the sequel to the movie Spinal Tap has to do with biblical exegesis. Okay, so let's just dive in and read the passage. Luke 15. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near Christ to listen to him. Both the Pharisees and the scribes began to grumble, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable, saying, "What man among you, if he has 100 sheep and has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open pasture and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? When he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found the sheep which was lost.' I tell you that in the same way, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who need no repentance." Well, that's a really familiar passage, isn't it? But when I just read it for the first time in preparing for this, I was caught by the word rejoice. And in the Greek, you got the verb, you got the noun, and it appears the same noun for joy here is rejoicing there. So it's really the same thing. And by the way, that's the same word that's in the fruit of the Spirit. Chara, rejoice, joy. So, if we pay attention to this, maybe we'll have more joy. That would be a nice outcome. And then, the other thing, whenever you read one of these Bible stories, right, one of the good ways to think about it is to say, who am I in this passage? What am I most like, right? And so, of course, since we're in church with church people, we're obviously not the scribes or the Pharisees, are we? So who are we? And, most people, and I know for myself for sure, I know exactly who I am in this story, right? I'm the one who was lost. And I see other people nodding in here saying, I'm the one who was lost, right? And, if you think about it, this is probably the most beloved 4-word clip of lyrics in the entire English language. I once was lost. But you got to ask yourself, like in the parable, what kind of person is Christ talking about? In this story right here, what kind of person is he talking about? Well, it's pretty obvious in this context. He's talking about the tax collectors and the sinners, right? But here's the interesting thing. That was Luke, now we're in Matthew, where Christ says, what do you think? If any man has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go and search for the one that is straying? If it turns out that he finds it, truly I say to you, he rejoices over it more than over the 99 which have not gone astray. So it is not the will of your Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones would perish. So that looks like almost exactly the same as Luke, right? And there's lots of cases in the Gospels where the same event gets reported in almost the same language in more than one, but that is not the case here. And we don't really know whether the Luke one or the Matthew one, they're two separate events. We don't know which one is the sequel. Okay? And that's the joke. I mean, you're not going to get another joke tonight. Okay. Because here, who's he talking about? Well, first of all, and the other one, who's he talking to? He was basically talking to the scribes and the Pharisees, right? And who's he talking to now? In Matthew 18, he's talking to the disciples. And who's he talking about? Well, he's talking, here's the passage that comes right before this. See that you do not despise one of these little ones. He's talking about the children. For I say to you that their angels in heaven continually see the face of my Father who is in heaven. So we've got these two different, Jesus tells the same parable twice to two different people. Isn't that two different sets of people, two different events? Isn't that interesting? Have you ever heard a preacher tell the same story more than once? Hopefully it wasn't me. But, so that's interesting. And so if you broaden it out and you think about, he's using the same parable in two different settings, what kind of person is Christ talking about when he talks about the lost sheep? What does he mean by that? And there's actually a clue in the Luke passage, which is this little part of it, where it says, when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. That's the clue. He laid. So what kind of person is this person represented by the lost sheep? Well, let's take a little walk through our church. Okay, here we are. We're going up for communion, and we're getting closer to communion, and we look to the side, and there's our icon of the Good Shepherd. And what's he got on his shoulders? He's got the sheep. Now, this is a really interesting thing about our icons, which you were mentioning a mystery about icons earlier. But icons are actually, they don't just give you a picture of the story, they give you insights into the meaning of the story here, right? So Christ says, well, everyone would leave the 99 and go get the one, but he's really talking about what Christ does. So here's one example of that, at least in another parable. I guess you know which parable that is. That's the Good Samaritan, and it's just the part taken out of there. Here's another interesting icon where we get the meaning of the parable in the icon. This is an icon of the Good Samaritan. See, there he is getting put on the donkey. He's getting taken to the inn. By the way, the priest and the Levite don't even get any credit on this side. Right? But look, Christ has him on his shoulders. So the interpretation that's in the icon, the insight is that the story of the Good Samaritan is a good example of what Christ does, which is he finds the lost sheep. And in this case, what kind of person was it?
A Samaritan.
Someone lying naked and dead, half dead on the side of the road, right? Okay, so now we're going to pause, and we're going to have some discussion. When it comes to the idea that Christ is seeking out lost sheep, what stories can you think of in the New Testament where Christ is like left the 99, or anyway, he sought out someone who's like a lost sheep? Go ahead.
Well, probably the most dramatic example is Paul on the road to Damascus.
Wow. That's a cool one. I had not thought of that one.
Yeah.
I've got some that if you missed some, I'm going to come up with some. Who else has got one?
How about the woman who comes to him and says that even the crumbs, even the what is it?
That's
the
another good
crumbs, one. At least they get the
Because
crumbs.
she's a Canaanite, right?
Yeah,
Or
something like that.
she's the Canaanite woman.
Right.
And they say, send her away. She's no good. Someone else.
The woman at the well.
The woman at the well. I got her coming up, yeah.
The woman with the issue of blood.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
A lot of women in our thinking.
There you go. Well, the woman caught in adultery, right?
The little children. The little
The
children.
little children. They're low status. Okay, let's see which ones I came up with. I had the 10 lepers.
Uh-huh.
They were definitely outcasts, right? And then there's the guy at the pool in Bethesda, right? Says, I'd like to get better, but I don't have anyone who will help me. Right? And there's the woman caught in adultery. And there's the crazy guy, the demon-possessed guy with the legion of demons. And even Zacchaeus.
Yes.
He's up in a tree. He's rich, but nobody likes him.
Brady, you remember that song about it?
And you mentioned the woman at the well, right? And nobody mentioned the thief on the cross, but he's definitely an example, right? So we learned a little something about who Christ is, right? He's the guy who goes after the lost sheep. He's the one who loves the people that nobody else loves. He loves the people that nobody else loves. So let's talk about the categories. Let's categorize these people that Christ has sought out as lost sheep. Well, the 9 lepers, they're outcasts and they're despised. And the guy by the pool in the Bethesda, he's broken and he's disabled. We were talking to somebody tonight who called himself broken, weren't we? You weren't there. And then there's the woman caught in adultery. You could say that that's the kind of person that's too dumb to listen and who faffoed,
No, don't put that
fooled
there.
around and found out. You were afraid, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Inappropriate.
And then, there's the mentally ill and the people who are just out there on some spectrum. And Zacchaeus, he's rejected. And I don't know if this exactly applies to the woman caught in the well, but there must be something wrong with her if she's been married 5 times, right?
They're not married now.
So I put that into the category
Well,
of
she was a
awkward and
Samaritan. Was she a
loser.
Samaritan woman anyway, so she was already
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So all that by itself is enough.
And then you could say an example of the people that Christ loved that nobody else loves is the thief on the cross. He got what he deserved, right? He even said it himself. We got what we deserved. So I think that's really touching. That on our own icon, we get the understanding in our church that Christ is the guy who leaves the 99 and gets the one lost sheep. And he's the guy who loves the people who nobody else loves. And you could ask me personally, what is it that I really love about Jesus? And you could ask a lot of other people. And probably one of the things that people love the most about Christ is that he loves the people that nobody else loves. And that's me at the time. And you think about it, historically, right? All the great people of history. Can you think of anybody who was a great person in history who was great because he loved the people that nobody else loved? Well, maybe St. Francis.
Mother
But
Teresa.
that's after Christ. And that's after Christ and based on
Before
Christ.
Christ?
Well, just anybody in history, ancient history, who's not influenced by Christ.
Oh, this, okay.
There you go. It's really a wonderful thing. It's completely distinctive. It's outstanding. There's nobody else who does that. Okay. He laid them on his shoulders, rejoicing. That's a pretty nice thing. Christ rejoices when we turn to him.
So do the angels.
Okay, so there we are. We made it through the first of the 3 points. We have a better understanding of who Christ is. He's the person who loves the people that nobody else loves. And now for something completely different. Right? And we'll just read this. The centurion. By the way, I got the idea for this Bible study while sitting in church when we did the centurion reading about, 6 weeks ago, something like that. A centurion's slave who was highly regarded by him was sick and about to die. When he heard about Jesus, he sent some Jewish elders asking him to come and save the life of his slave. When they came to Jesus, they earnestly implored him, saying, "He is worthy for you to grant this to him, for he loves our nation, and it was he who built our synagogue." Now Jesus started on his way with them, and when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself further, for I am not worthy for you to come under my roof. For this reason I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I am a man placed under authority with soldiers under me, and I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my slave, do this, and he does it." Now when Jesus heard this, he marveled at him, and turned and said to the crowd that was following him, "I say to you, not even in Israel have I found such great faith." And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the slave and in good health. So that's in Luke. And then we've got a similar passage in Matthew. And when Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, imploring him, saying, "Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, fearfully tormented." Jesus said to him, "I will come and heal him." But the centurion said, "Lord, I am not worthy for you to come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I am also a man under authority, and my servant, I am also a man under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my slave, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who were following, "Truly I say to you, I have not found such great faith with anyone in Israel. I say to you that many will come from the east and west and recline at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into outer darkness, and in that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, it shall be done for you as you have believed." And the servant was healed at that very moment. Now we already talked about sequels, right? And Jesus doing the same thing twice. But this is not one of those cases. Okay? And because it's the same event that's being described, but for editorial purposes, the one author includes more detail than the other, and it's not identical, but it's the same event, right? And you could say, now this is something completely different from the story of the 100 sheep, but it's not completely different because there's a connection. And the connection is the 1 out of 100 part of it. There's 100 sheep and there's one lost sheep. And the centurion is commander over 100 soldiers, and there's one dying slave. Isn't that an interesting connection there? And so here's the description of the slave. In Luke it says a centurion's slave who was highly regarded by him. And in Matthew it says a centurion came to him imploring him, saying, "My servant is lying." So here's where I make my money as a Bible teacher, because we go to the Greek, okay? Here we go. And in the Luke passage, the word slave, or translated servant here, is doulos, and the number one meaning of that, according to the authoritative Arndt and Gingrich English Greek lectionary, is a male slave, an entity in the socio-economic context. Okay? Whereas, the very interesting thing here, in Matthew, the word is pais, my servant, where the actual number one meaning of that is a young person below the age of puberty. So this was like a young slave. And look at meaning number 2. Well, you can see it over here. This is a hard to see chart, but it says meaning number 2 is one's own offspring or child, as son or daughter. So that's like a real sense of endearment, isn't it? My dear child is dying. And then the third meaning is one who is committed in total obedience to another as a servant. So on the one hand, everybody looks at him, well, that's just a slave, right? Whereas the way the centurion looks at him is, that's my dear child. Isn't that interesting? So again, what kind of person is it that's the equivalent of the lost sheep in this story? That's the one out of the 100. Well, to some people, it's just somebody of no importance whatsoever, like the despised little ones, a slave, and yet to the centurion, it was my own immediate son or daughter, my own child. Pais. That probably, there's some Greek words that are based on that I didn't take the time to look up. But anyway, so isn't this interesting? The centurion is a model of Christ himself, because he loved a person that nobody else loved. Right? The slave, he loved a person that nobody else loved. Now, what?
Not buying it.
He's not buying it. Okay, well, stick with me. Now, probably the top, definitely in the top 10, and maybe in the top 5, most favoritist verses in the New Testament, at least in America, is Romans 8:28, right? We know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Right? And what's the next verse that comes after it? For those whom he foreknew, he predestined to become conformed to the image of his Son. Okay? And this word image is the word icon. Like icons in our church. Right? So here we have this centurion. He's like Christ. He loved the person that nobody else loved. And he's operating as an icon of Christ. And he's not the only one. It says everyone who's called according to Christ's purpose is predestined to be an icon of Christ. What a wonderful thing. And, you think about our newest saint of North America, a priest's wife in some really super rural, you can't even drive there, can you? What do you got to do? You got to go up a river in the summertime? That's Matushka Olga. I would say when I read her life story, one of the things that really makes her distinguished as a saint is not the miraculous stuff, but she clothed the naked, fed the hungry, and she listened to those suffering in silence, especially women who had suffered abuse. She's an icon of Christ because she loved the people that nobody else loved. Okay. Well, we made it through the first 2 points. We've connected 2 seemingly unfamiliar, unrelated Bible passages, and we see that Christ is the person who loves the people that no one else loves. And now we see from the centurion that we might be and are actually supposed to be icons of Christ. And maybe we do that by loving someone or some people that no one else loved. Now we come to the third point, which is the ingredients of great faith. So Christ here marvels at the guy. I'm amazed. I have not found such great faith. And that's in the Matthew passage. And then in the Luke passage, well, same thing, because it's the same event, right? Now this phrase, great faith, only appears in one Bible study, in one Bible story, in the whole Bible. This one right here.
Must be that one.
If you want to learn about great faith from the New Testament, this is definitely the starting point. So let's take a look at what the ingredients are of great faith. Okay? Well, first of all, everyone around him, they came to Jesus, the Jewish elders, and said, he's worthy for you to grant this to him. And so that actually, this will give you a little insight you may not have ever thought before. What gets said when someone gets ordained in the Orthodox Church?
Yes.
Axios, axios, axios. That's the word worthy, right? The fact that that's what gets said when he gets ordained is sort of a oblique or not direct but a real connection to this story about the centurion. Are you going to buy that one? He buys that one. Okay. Isn't that interesting? So tons of stuff in our worship is like comes out of the New Testament. And here's one example. When he's ordained, we say axios, axios, axios. And it's related to the story about the centurion. But how does the centurion see himself? He says, I am not worthy, which is the characteristic of all the saints, right? Which is puzzling to me, and it's like, hey, let's be realistic about the situation here. But that's the way they look at themselves, and compared to Christ, that's the way they are.
Well, who knows him best other than God
There you go.
himself?
Okay? Well, yeah, but let's not talk about those things, should we? Okay, so the first ingredient for great faith is humility. And again, you got to be Christ-like if you're going to have great faith. He said, I am gentle and humble in heart. And just yesterday in our readings, right, we had the amazing passage about Christ's humility from Philippians, right? Although he existed in the form of God, he did not regard equality a thing to be grasped with God. He humbled himself, right? Remember that? That was just yesterday. Okay, so this centurion, he could have played it a different way, couldn't he? Could have said, hey, I'm a big, strong centurion, and you're going to heal my servant because I'm big and important. And there might have been a little bit like my meeting with my boss a week and a half ago, an implied threat. But we won't talk about that. But instead, he humbled himself. What did his soldiers think? What are my soldiers going to think if I go and beg this guy who doesn't even own a change of clothes for help? This guy who's part of the conquered people. Well, then the next ingredient is, for I am also a man placed under authority with soldiers unto me. And I say this one go, and he goes, and another come, and he comes. So he understood Christ. He understood Christ, that Christ could actually do it. And then, I may be stretching here. Thank you for pointing out when I'm stretching. But maybe he understood Christ, that Christ is the person who loves the people that nobody else loves, even the Roman, no good, pre-puberty, worthless slave of the oppressive boss. Right? Maybe he understood that, and he could have learned that from Matthew 8 immediately before this story, where the leper comes to Christ and says, I know you can heal me if you want to. And Christ says, I'm willing. Be cleansed. He was immediately cleansed. So here's the three ingredients I got for great faith out of this. Obviously, I'm not a guy of great faith, and why would you want to learn great faith from me? But you'd probably want to learn about great faith from the New Testament, wouldn't you? And I think this came from the New Testament. That some of the ingredients for great faith is humility. And particularly humility of the type where other people think that's a holy person, and yet you understand what you really are. And then humility of knowing that Christ could do it, and that Christ wants to bring the lost sheep back on his shoulders. And this relates to the fact that Christ can do it, and that he wants to do it. It relates to this passage from 1 John. Well, 30 minutes already. It relates to this passage from 1 John, where he says, this is the confidence we have before Christ in God, that if we ask anything according to his will, what he wants to do, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us in whatever we ask, we know that we have the requests we have asked from him. So that lines up with the ingredients of great faith. Okay, there we are. We should be done, right? We brought together two seemingly unrelated Bible passages, and we got a better understanding of who Christ is. He loves the people nobody else loved. And who we might be icons of Christ, loving people that nobody else loves. And we also learned something about the ingredients of great faith. But there's one more little point to make, is that we're all busy people. And the centurion, he's like a really important person, right? He's got a job to do. Have you ever been boss over 100 people? I mean, I was the boss over 50 people at one point in my career. Of course, that's ancient history. But it wasn't much fun. I gave it up. But he's an important person. He's got a job to do. He's got responsibilities. Do we have responsibilities? We've got responsibilities. And we've got priorities. We've got to give priorities to the really important stuff, right? But what about the lost sheep? That shepherd had 100 sheep. He had priorities. He had responsibilities for 99 sheep. And what does Christ say? Any regular, decent person, any regular guy at all, is going to ignore those responsibilities and priorities, and he's going to leave the 99 and go for the lost sheep. So, and that related to this, exactly what this centurion did, right? He gave up on all those responsibilities and he went to Christ. So the big question is, how does that relate to us and our priorities? My own thinking is that, hey, I have priorities and responsibilities, but there's got to be a place in my life, at least some space in my life, for the people that nobody else loved. So there you go. Now we got a new answer to the question of who am I in the story of the 99 sheep, right? Well, originally I thought the main point was that, hey, I'm the lost sheep, and isn't Christ just the most wonderful thing imaginable? Because he came and rescued me. But now I realize I can be an icon of Christ, and I have the opportunity to be someone who loves the people that nobody else loved. By the way, the apostles, they left all their responsibilities and priorities too, didn't they? So that's the question of who am I? And so we finished our story here, right? The story of 1 out of 100. We now have a better insight of who Christ is, loving people no one else loved. Who we might be, icons of Christ, loving people no one else loved, and the ingredients of great faith. And now we're about to turn on the cameras and we'll compare our own experiences.
Can you turn them off?
We're about to turn off the cameras. Let's turn them on. We'll share our own experiences of what it's like when you're trying to love the people that nobody else loves.